tonight with Elizabeth Falkner and with Melissa Clark. Anyway, welcome to the Strand Bookstore. It's wonderful to have you, and thank you for waiting. Tonight I'm thrilled. I'm actually Jessica Strand, and I am no relationship to the Strand Bookstore. It is a complete coincidence. Tonight I'm thrilled to introduce Chef Elizabeth Falkner, a wonderful California chef who has just relocated to Brooklyn. She's been an executive pastry chef and owner of Citizen Cake and co-owner of Orson. Now, in fact, just 4 days ago, she opened Krescendo, a divine pizza joint that I went to last night. And it's not really a joint. It's very relaxed but elegant and really delicious. I had the fennel pizza. I recommend it. Anyway, Falkner was a runner-up last year in the Next Iron Chef, losing to Jeffrey Zakarian. She's now on Iron Chef The Redemption. This evening, she'll be in conversation with journalist writer Melissa Clark, who you've been chatting with, a New York Times columnist for the dining section. And she's written 32 books for chefs and also written 2 of her own books, like This Now and In the Kitchen with a Good Appetite. Please welcome me in joining Elizabeth. Please join me in welcoming, my goodness, it's been a long day, Elizabeth Falkner and Melissa Clark. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello. Does this work? Ooh. It says it's on. Well, you have that one. I mean, we could just go like that. Be amusing. Yeah. You guys want to be amusing? Oh, it's working.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi. So bad traffic?
Yeah, I mean, since the storm, obviously everything's a little more chaotic than most New Yorkers, I think, like.
Oh, okay.
Or anybody.
So first question is, where are the snacks?
The snacks are here.
Okay,
I dropped
good.
them off
Just
over
making
there.
sure. Just got to get like the most important question out there. What'd you bring?
I brought some tarali. They're a Neapolitan little
wine cracker thing.
Yeah, like a little savory biscuit.
Do you make them?
We do. They're made with wine and lots of olive oil, and so they're kind of flaky and tender, and they're a really old world cracker that you buy on the street in Naples. And oftentimes they have almonds. I just put fennel and black pepper in these, and you boil them and then bake them. So they're unleavened. So they're kind of like a pretzel, but kind of their own thing.
Right, and then the fennel. I heard. Did you ever hear this? That the reason that they always serve fennel snacks in wine bars in Italy is because the fennel makes any wine you're drinking taste sweet.
Oh, I didn't really realize that, but I love fennel. So
I know. So anyway, next time you
all.
all have fennel, drink some wine and see if it actually works. But an Italian told me that, so it must be true. Okay, let's talk about your book, because that's why we're here. This is your second book, and this book is very different. I know some of you have seen Elizabeth's first book. Do we really need this thing?
I know. You guys can hear it.
You guys can. All right. And this book is totally different. The first book was very, this one. Okay, it was pastry chef oriented. It was your vision and what you did to break through. Pastry can be very, very staid, very, I guess staid is a good word, right? And you
disciplined.
Disciplined, okay.
Yeah.
You just turned it on its head. And this book is completely different. So, what made you decide? So this book is about home cooking. This is the food that you make in your own kitchen. And what made you decide to go in that direction for your next book?
Well, the first book, Demolition Desserts, was something that needed to happen, I feel, for many years because.
We'll share that one.
Okay. I felt like people were constantly, 10 Speed was after me for years to write up the first book. Right. And then that ended up just being like, gosh, I've got to document this stuff because I keep coming up with more things. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I just put down a lot of information, and it was my first book, so I spent a lot of time with the concept of the anime and making it more of a punk rock kind of feeling. And then, the second book came out because 10 Speed again was after me to just do another Citizen Cake book, but they had to have the Citizen Cake name on the first book. So I'm like, well, wait a minute, that is kind of Citizen Cake, but not really. That's not really this. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. For some reason, I've got all this savory food that I'm so excited about. I want to show. I don't want dumbed down food. Like, it's not like how to cook things in a few minutes. It's like just food that I want to eat at home, stuff that, and it's not that big of a departure for me from Demolition Desserts because I like looking at iconic dishes or regional dishes and saying, yeah, and how can I just crank up the volume my way on there?
Yeah, which is a lot of the book is really like classic flavors from all around the world, right? And then you just put your twist on it, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm at that point, I guess, after 23 years of cooking that, you know, any dish I want to take on, I want to travel with it.
Yeah.
And I want to be authentic enough with it, but I also have my own DJ mix I want to do with it or something like that.
That's a technical term. Here, I'm going to borrow that. So here's a question, though. So you moved. This is somebody wanted to know. We before you got here, we gossiped about you, and I found out what everybody wanted to know. So I have all their questions. And one question, which was really interesting, is how you made the transition from pastry chef to savory chef, which is, and your restaurant Orson was a great. Sort of culmination of that. But then the book, so why didn't 10-Speed want an Orson cookbook? Why, is it because you knew that wasn't going to last, or no, just because you wanted to do the home cooking?
10-Speed was, I think everybody just really, it's my fault I came up with the name Citizen Cake. And because there was this really big need for a sort of a contemporary pastry shop in San Francisco 15 years ago, and but my pastry shop also was always a restaurant. It's just that the name carries the cake with it, And then I think that they just really, because of the reputation of Citizen Cake, it was such a popular place. It was really fun. I did really avant-garde stuff. I started getting on television a lot, and so more people would see it, and. But we always did do savory food too, so it's very it's funny when people say, "How would you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I have been cooking savory food for a long time. It's just that you don't know me for that."
Right, but as a pastry chef, how did you personally make that transition? Because you started in pastry. I mean, you started working with Tracy Gage with that. I mean, and then how did you transition to be?
I mean, my first cooking job was actually I was the chef.
Really? Which was that?
It was at Café Claude. It was a teeny little French bistro downtown.
I know it says that you started as a dishwasher there, and it doesn't mention that
as a dishwasher?
That's what
no,
I
did. Wikipedia is not right. There's so many. I've had to correct it a couple times because it said I was born in Boston one time. I'm like, what? I was born in San Francisco.
Okay, Wikipedia did say San Francisco. No, but it said that you started, and it wasn't dishwasher, but it said you started at the bottom, and then it never quite. Okay, so tell us.
Okay, I did start as a nighttime cook.
Okay, so tell us about that. So you started so what made you go from savory to sweet?
I've always done both. I mean, when I worked at that little cafe, yeah, I was making all the savory food. It was teeny. I mean, I had like barely any equipment. It was almost like Mary Sue and Susan's story at their Border Grill. But I started like getting so obsessed with the pastry stuff because out here, Jacques Torres and Dan Budd and Francois Payard were all doing some pretty amazing dessert stuff. And we had a pastry chef come to town, Mary Check, and she was a very well-respected restaurant pastry chef from the East Coast. And she brought this insane architecture to the plate. And this was the early '90s when, Gotham Bar and everybody started building tall. And so it just kind of was screaming like, wow, this is a really artistic medium, and I just kind of felt myself and I had just had a natural ability at it. And
you were in art school at that time, right? Or
I had graduated and I was working in film production, but I took on this little Café Claude job part-time just to make money, and then I was like, well, I really like it, and then a month later they said, do you want to be the chef? And I was like, yeah, great. And then I got a job at Moss's, which is a great restaurant in San Francisco, especially at that time, in pastry, because that was sort of the opening position. When I asked to move up on the line, the chef said, no, I don't want any women in the kitchen. So that was a different era.
Right. Well,
still the same in a lot of places, but
the fluidity is, I mean, even still, do you see a lot of that kind of fluidity that you had sort of going back and forth? I feel like when I talk to a lot of chefs, they say that they really kind of
pick one.
Yeah, you kind of have to pick one. It's kind of amazing that you could do both at the same time, and it just was a natural way to develop.
I really enjoyed the science and art of cooking, and I like to keep pushing myself. I like challenges, obviously. That's why I like all these competitions. And I think I just like, if you ask me to make a wedding cake right now, it's like the last thing I want to do, even though I know I make really nice wedding cakes and cakes. Right. But it's like I've done so many, I'm ready for something completely different, like Southern Italian food.
Right. For example, can I ask you about the cooking shows for a second? Because it said, I'm hoping I got it. It's like you read these things online, and now I realize maybe I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. So you just correct me if I'm wrong. But this was on your website. It said that one of the things that you loved about it was that it's like competitive sports. And so how do you, so obviously if you're doing competitive sports, you are training, right? How do you train for this kind of TV, the competitive TV?
You open restaurants. I would say, no, I do look at it like it's a competitive sport, and I played competitive soccer for like 28 years out of my life, from 9 until 37, and I knew when I quit it that I would really miss it, and I started getting into kickboxing and sword fighting and stuff like that. But then when the competition started happening, I mean, I was on as a sous chef for Kat Cora when she first became an Iron Chef in 2005. I think we shot that, and because I love the shows too, and I was like, oh, Kat's gonna be on it. I'm like, I'm gonna volunteer and be her sous chef for an episode or whatever. And then after I did a couple episodes with her, I was like, oh no, I have to compete. Like, I don't want to just be your sous chef. And no offense to sous chefs. And, my sous chef is here. And no, but it's television, for heaven's sake.
The song and dance I was doing before you got here.
But
I would have made you. If you told me that, I would have made you come up.
He's an amazing sous chef. We've already been through hell in a few days, so But for training for the competitions, I really do I get in shape physically, because it's such a strain on your body. Just the anticipation of what in the world they might throw at you, and then the actual competition time. It's and then you're on camera too, and you have to do all these interviews, and it takes it's the production timing of it is what's so exhausting.
So physically, you just get your body really ready. You work out. You work out with a trainer, and you do.
I work out a lot to get ready for it, and then during it, and then I also I've gone to the market and just picked out random things, or I'll have my friends. I mean, I shot Chopped All-Stars this year too, that hasn't aired yet, and my friends would give me a mystery basket. But there's no way to prep for Chopped, honestly, because it's so random. You're like, oh, cool. Oh, no.
How am I gonna make
and then you can't even think. You're just like, put it on the plate.
What about in terms of writing the cookbooks versus, I mean, you've done through many different things as part of your career, right? It's very well-rounded. So what's your favorite part of it? Is it being in the kitchen? Is it writing the cookbooks? And you wrote the cookbooks yourself, right?
The first one I had a co-author, but this one I wrote. I wrote this one myself because sometimes in working, I had a great co-author on my first book. I had one co-author, and then I fired her, and then I brought on somebody else. And then, because the information just gets so skewed, and by the time it gets to editing too, then you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't even sound like me. And then I was like, I'm going to try this one by myself now that I know the process. And I think it was a little easier for me,
was it?
honestly. But my favorite part is the cooking. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of, it's like in working with new staff and cooks too, it's like that is my favorite part, but it's so hard to get everything organized just for that moment on stage, which is what that really feels like. It's like you got to do this whole production just for that short amount of time of cooking.
And I mean, I think what's one of the great things that I love about your latest book is that your love of cooking for yourself and your friends. I mean, that really comes through. I mean, you read that and you think, first of all, I want to make every single thing in it, but then you just, I don't believe a lot of chefs when they tell me to go home and cook. I just don't believe them. I think, no, you don't. You take stuff from the restaurant and you warm it up at home, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't really, you're tired. You're never home. You order in, or your wife cooks or your husband cooks or whatever. But I believe you. I really believe that you actually go home and make, gosh, I'm trying to think of an example of a dish. Whatever you say you do, that you actually will go home and cook a full meal for yourself to feed, because my sense is that you're that taking care of your body and feeding yourself is really as important as feeding other people.
Well, but everybody likes to cook. Everybody who likes to cook at home, because people often say it's therapeutic. And I feel the same way about cooking at home. I mean, cooking at work is, I think I say that in the book too, it's a job, and it's fun, and it's crazy, and it's a huge orchestration. But there's when I go home, it's just like, this is just for me or for whoever. And it also is just, I think it's, my dad's an abstract artist, and I had always grown up, sketching and drawing and painting, and then turning it into films and turning it into photography. And so for me, it's kind of similar. It's like, I almost feel like I'm sketching. I'm just kind of still making things.
Right. So that probably, in terms of making the same thing twice, at home, do you ever make the same thing twice? At the restaurant, you have to be consistent. You have to get your recipes. They have to be sort of consistent, I would imagine, right? But at home, do you feel like you're always just, like you said, sketching or just kind of trying something new or doing something differently? Or do you feel like there are certain recipes that you do at home and you will make them over and over again?
Well, as in just opening a restaurant, I've come home at like 2 or 3 a.m. Several nights and had made myself macaroni and cheese the same way both times.
But in terms of like, but that's not the therapeutic cooking. No, that's just like feeding your face. It's different. That's not like but like when you're cooking. I mean, let's just pretend that the last 2 months, of opening the restaurant, let's think of beyond that, before that. But when you are cooking, or like when you'll do a dinner party or something, or have friends over, I know friends always ask me, will you make that thing again that you made that time? And I'll say no, because I don't remember what I did.
Tweaked, I guess I can't, but I do have friends that'll say, can you make those baked beans again, or their clam chowder or whatever, and
you can do it.
And I do that, yeah.
And you remember what you did, and you don't have the urge to just like push it in another direction. You're like, okay, no, this was really good the way I did it. I'm going to do it again.
I think I do that so that I can try to perfect it,
right.
And then once I feel like I've got something that I really like down, then I'm probably not going to tweak it that much until I start getting kind of tired of it, and then I move on to something or a different cuisine or something like that. Although I'm convinced that I won't get tired of pasta and pizza in the way that one would get tired of sweets. I mean, I still love making desserts. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have a cassata that's, I feel like, extremely dynamic right now. Cassata is a classic Sicilian cake made with like a ricotta cream and then sponge cake, like usually an almond sponge cake, or in this case I make a pistachio one, and then lots of candied citrus on it, and marzipan, and maybe some fondant. Beautiful cake, but never been my favorite thing to eat. And so I've made it with tangerine sorbet, like a ricotta kind of cremeux, and then I'm using different techniques in this particular application, but it still has all the same flavors. So, and then I do like some Campari and vermouth poached dried cherries, and it takes it somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, which leads to another question from our audience earlier. What's your creative process when you're coming up with a new recipe? Like, how did that dessert develop? Like, how did you get from fondant and marzipan and almond cake to...
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes I'll eat whatever the classic thing is. Like in this particular restaurant project, my business partner, Nancy Pugliese, is from Brooklyn and Sicilian family. And so we talked about the kind of food stuff that she's interested in beyond pizza and what she's grown up with eating. And so the first time I came out here to look at Brooklyn spots with her, I said, I want your mom to cook for me because I want to understand what you're talking about. And then, so I would look, her mom made me the pasta con la sarde, which is a fantastic pasta that I didn't, I think her mom's cooking is great. I really do. It's like, it feels like very typical home cooking, out in Brooklyn. And so I tasted everything, and then I thought, but how can I just like bring out some other flavors, and here like the fennel fronds, the bronze fennel's in it, but like why not use the whole fennel bulb, and why not use some fennel pollen? That'll really jazz it up. And then that balance of saffron and toasted pine nuts and raisins, or I use currants right now because I'm using it with fregola, which is a little toasted semolina pasta that looks kind of like couscous. So having a smaller little currant with it is makes it sense, because if it was a big raisin, it would feel weird, I think, in it. And then there's a little bit of tomato, parsley, but you get all, and then just little breadcrumbs and anchovy oil, and did I say anchovies and sardines? Because that's the main part of it. Yeah. Okay, so it's got all this umami stuff from the sardines, anchovies. Then you get the sweetness from the currants, and then the pickled capers and saffron, and it's like amazing. And everybody who eats it thinks that I've put chicken stock or something richer in it, but it's in fact just coming from all those flavors together.
So you're starting with one dish that you want to work on. So you have this idea of pasta con sarde, right? And that's your dish, and then you just start bringing in. I mean, I guess when you said you want to kick it up, you want to brighten it, you want to make it a little...
And I like texture a lot. Yeah. I feel like texture comes into play in my food a lot. We have a kale salad right now that has raw Tuscan kale, blanched and shocked Tuscan kale, same kale, and then fried. And then it's got a lemon egg vinaigrette ricotta salata. It also has breadcrumbs on it. It's the texture of all those different kales together, and then that little bit of crunchiness, and it also has a maple candied pancetta. So it's just like kind of like, I almost think it's probably my pastry mind kind of helping me work on these different, because in pastry is very dramatic if you think about it. You've got sweet and fat, and then I like salt. I feel very American that way. I want some extra salt and stuff. And then everybody likes that backbone of vanilla. So somehow I feel like I try to do that in all my dishes subconsciously. I don't even know if I think about it that much. It's just that it's about those different textures and drama.
How much does appearance come into it? I mean, pastry, that's such a huge part of it, is how is it going to look on the plate? What's the presentation? Do you think about that as just as much on the savory side?
I think about it a lot, and I'm thinking about it a lot in this particular restaurant project because I don't want things to get too plated, because it's not that kind of food. I mean,
That's interesting.
I like the modernism in cuisine a lot. I love it on television. I love like making it just more dramatic and outlandish for like shows like Iron Chef and stuff. And but I think I'm very consciously trying to pull back practice the art of restraint a little bit in the plating, and also just realistically, how many, I don't hardly have any cooks right now. It's just me and Philippe.
So what are you both doing? Who's at the restaurant?
Sorry.
I said, who's at the restaurant?
No, we're closed tonight. I wouldn't be here.
Oh, that's right. It's Monday night.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, everything in Brooklyn is closed on Monday night. So, let's see.
I'm just kidding. I have other cooks, but I'm working, and that's part of the opening of a restaurant. You've got to get your right team together.
Okay, so here's the big question. So, what, you're in San Francisco, you're at the top of your game, you've got the whole TV thing, you've got these amazing restaurants. So why give it up and come to Brooklyn?
Oh, well, I mean, I think I'm like a lot of people. I've always wanted to live in New York, and I grew up in Los Angeles, suburban Los Angeles, and I've lived in San Francisco for the last 25 years, finished college there, and fell in love with food and started cooking. But I've actually always wanted to do something out here, and it just kind of it's just time for me to leave San Francisco, honestly. I feel like I did some really cool things there. But San Francisco it's an amazing city. It's great. It's beautiful. It's also become as expensive as Manhattan in real estate, and that's not really great for restaurant operators. So I've just felt like it's a good time to leave, and it's also kind of just another opportunity to really do something different and not be just I always put in a little pink box.
And so why? And then the next question though. So why Brooklyn and not Manhattan?
I think Brooklyn's hot. I think it's just like I feel like it's another neighborhood of Manhattan almost. It's like it's so easy, and it's typically easy, right, to get back and forth, but not right now. And then you're like, I hope I have gas. Is it my day to go? I don't even know. But I think it's super fun over there. There's a lot of people into food. I mean, and what's really cool is in the restaurant, people have already, said, thank you so much for moving here instead of Manhattan.
Yeah, right.
And I just think it's beautiful. I love this part of Brooklyn on Atlantic between Bond and Hoyt. It's just really cool little antique stores and boutiques.
What was
And
in the space before you guys? Do you know what it was?
it used to be called Downtown Atlantic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it's not oversaturated with restaurants in that area at all.
Anyway, not that stretch right there. And okay, so I know we all want to know this. So you've been in New York for what, since?
4 months.
4 months?
Since July 4th.
Where have you eaten and what do you like?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean,
Know that? Especially in Brooklyn, I really want to know.
gosh, I've been to a lot of places, but you guys could probably tell me more. I like Roberta's a lot. I like the vibe there. Mm-hmm. I've been there for brunch too, and that's really good. And then I like Franny's a lot too. Those are like probably two of my favorites. I've been to Marlowe and Sons. I've been to I can't even think of all the places I've been to. Of course, I've been to Peter Luger Steakhouse. I've been there before. I went there recently, and it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you have...
Oh, my favorite. I know what I love. In Brooklyn Heights, noodle pudding.
Really?
That's such a cool place.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm shocked. But
Really? Oh, no, it's delicious. I mean, it's kind of goofy inside, but I like the owner a lot, and I think the food's really good.
Okay, great. It's just like completely off the radar these days. But I remember when it opened, it was a big thing, but this is good to know. Good.
Yeah, it's like a 19-year-old restaurant, and it's so not fancy, and the menu's pretty lame looking. I mean, it's just the font and everything about it's just like, what? Is this going to be good? And then it's really good.
Exactly. And how do you find the restaurant? I mean, I guess you don't know, you've only been open 4 days, but do you find just the opening of the restaurant different here than in San Francisco, or is it the same? Is opening a restaurant anywhere the same, or does it, in Brooklyn, does it just feel different in a way?
I think it's pretty similar. I mean, and this is like, I guess I've opened I opened up Rubicon with Tracy, and then I opened up my own Citizen Cake, but I had to move it 3 times. Then I opened up a place called Citizen Cupcake in the Virgin Megastore, and then I opened up Orson, and then I've certainly helped other people open restaurants. So it's, I kind of get it of what's going to happen. My business partner has only opened a couple restaurants, so she's much younger in the business than I am, and then our other partner actually has never opened a restaurant. He's an amazing mixologist, and he's kind of doing bi-coastal, so that's got its own set of challenges, but amazing cocktail program. And then I would say I tell this to the staff too, most of you won't work with me after a few months, although I've already gone through a few people that I'm like, maybe you won't even work with me for 2 weeks.
Right.
So we'll see how it plays out. It's always that way though. If you think about it, this is very true. When you're opening a restaurant, you got to hire people. All of a sudden you're like, okay, we're ready to open, and you put the word out there, and then anybody who's unemployed wants to work with you. But the people that you want are actually people who are employed.
Right, but you can't get a track record until the crowds start coming. Although your name, though, you think.
Yeah, and we actually have a strong group of people right now, but I think it'll evolve and change. It's just the nature of it. I tell everybody it's like we all just moved into a fraternity or sorority house together, and we're giving birth at the same time. That's what it's going to feel like.
Sounds great.
I'm like, so if you're into that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, then we're going to take questions from you guys in case I missed something. But this is something which came up when I was reading an article about you. Some San Francisco paper, a reputable one though, so not like a Wikipedia, that said that that financially it was really hard in San Francisco. And I think you look at you, it's like, oh my God, you're on TV, you've got the books, you've got the restaurants, you're a celebrity chef. Why is it so hard to make it come together financially? I mean, isn't that everybody's dream who wants to be a chef?
It's a romantic dream of a lot of people for sure, and there's some people that are really good at it, and a lot of times though it's just it's luck. It's like being at the right place at the right time, knowing how to run it, not. And it's an expensive endeavor from the get-go. I mean, you just go out there and somebody puts all this money into something, and it is one of the riskiest things that you can do. And then you've got to get every little piece working, and it's a nickel and dime kind of business. So, and unfortunately, the cooking competitions and reality shows that I've been on are they're not high-paying job. It's not it's not like you barely ever make any money from television until you get to a certain level. And when you're Michael Simon, you start doing Lay's potato chip ads, then you're making some money.
Right. Doing Lay's potato chip ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a whole other.
So you see some of these chefs get something that they're in an ad for or sponsoring or being endorsed by. That's how anybody's going to make money, but it's not from actually doing those television shows. And cookbooks don't really pay you very much, and until you start selling. This book is probably going to do better than Demolition Desserts because a dessert book is a niche market. Yeah. So there's just by nature, this is just probably going to sell more.
So what you're banking on is the success of your restaurant, that people see you on TV and they come in and your restaurants are always crowded, and that the numbers in your restaurants to start with, the rent is right and the whole thing.
Exactly.
That all has to come together. And so it's a lot of moving pieces.
But I can be really honest about this. The last restaurant that I opened before this one in San Francisco was a huge space, and it was a huge project that my partner and I put together with a bunch of other investors, and it was in 2008. So we opened 6 months before the market crash, and it just made it it was just being punched in the gut, and it was doing these great numbers when what it was supposed to be doing, and then all of a sudden it was just apocalyptic. It was just horrifying, and so we had to change the whole concept. And then it was this is just an impossible endeavor.
Right, because you started out with a business plan reflecting this one climate, financial climate, and then it all changes. And so then,
And you try to roll with it, but I mean, and then you're like, God, I'm not really in love with any of the food that we're serving because this is not my kind of restaurant,
But I got to make the numbers.
Yeah.
So Brooklyn, let's see what happens, right?
The numbers, that's another thing that when you ask me about why Brooklyn, it's, the real estate's not exploded completely yet. And
Just talking about before you got here, that Brooklyn is the place where you can do something.
Right, you set up your cards right so that you can actually play a good game. Mm-hmm.
Guys, what do you want to ask Elizabeth? What didn't I cover?
Don't be shy.
Oh, come on. We were just talking like buddies before.
Has becoming a celebrity chef helped or hurt anything that you want to achieve later on in life, or made anything easier, or has it really mattered?
I don't really take, it's okay. I don't really, okay. I guess I've been a recognizable person, probably my hair. That's somebody, I was getting a manicure and pedicure today because my feet were dying and so were my hands. And one of the women came up and she goes, I know you. And I said, I don't know, probably not. And I said, do you watch Food Network? And she goes, that's what it is. And she goes, I recognize your hair. And so I'm kind of used to that because I've always had kind of funky hair, and I'm really tired of all these other chefs trying to copy me all the time.
There's just a few we think of.
I know. No, I intentionally on Next Iron Chef last year, I was like, well, I will not have bleach blonde hair because Anne Burrell is going to be there. And then every time I'm around Guy Fieri, I'm like, listen, I'm older than you, and I've had this hair longer than you. It hasn't, I just take it as a phenomenon. It's fun, it's amazing to me that, I'm starstruck by other chefs, and I always have been. And so I understand that, but I also just think, I think it's great that people respect chefs so much and that they become sort of pop stars in a way. And I have a brother who's a rock musician and another one who's a filmmaker, and so this kind of runs in our family somehow. I don't really know how to explain that, but it's always been part of around me in some way. So I'm just used to it. I don't care. And I think it's really nice when people compliment you because they like what you did on TV. I'm like, that's amazing. You haven't even had my food yet.
No, but it sets up this pleasant expectation in a way. People are going to go to your restaurants with this great impression. They're going there because they love you on TV, and so they're ready to love.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Well, and the good news is I'm not faking it on any of those shows. I'm really doing my thing, and so it's nice to have that. The response from last year, Next Iron Chef, was amazing to me because I would just go anywhere. I'd be at any airport. I was in Italy, and people were earlier this year, and people were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" It's just that's not. I've definitely felt the love or the fanfare from it. It's nice.
Do you feel like that influences the way you cook? Or no, totally separate, just different parts of the...
You mean just the way people respond to me? No.
Yeah, no, that they're expecting, I don't know, something different from you because they've seen you on TV, that it puts more pressure on you, or just you're cooking the way you're cooking, and...
I don't think it puts any... I have my own pressure on me.
Right.
So
bigger than anybody else's.
Yeah.
Probably, right?
It's definitely.
Yeah.
I also am trying to make food, especially in the restaurants or in the book, that I feel like people can wrap their head around. And for me, I once in a while I come up with stuff that I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, where am I going with this? It's a little too much. It's a little too crazy, or it's almost too inventive. Some of those things are my best desserts, but that doesn't always really work in every kind of application.
Because it's too much, because it's not going to, people aren't going to get...
Well, I'll be like, oh my God, there's 14 components on this plate.
So just too much. And like, okay, stop.
Yeah, it's because also, like, in my early restaurant days, it was fine dining, and so we did put a lot of different things on a plate. And I think that I'm trying to back away from that a little bit, but I still have a tendency once in a while to kind of just keep seeing how far I can take it.
Yeah. All right, I think, yes, we are good. And you're going to sign your books, right? So everyone, of course, everyone here has to get and I mean, oh, did I just say Anne? That is called a Freudian slip. Before you hear us saying my parents are psychiatrists, and my dad would be like, Melissa, you have to get Elizabeth's book because it's excellent. I have it, and I can tell you I've been reading it nonstop for the past couple of days, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
And everyone has to go get some trolley and have a little snack.
Yeah, and come in and try some pasta and pizza.
Yeah, so the menu, pasta, pizza, and and fabulous desserts.
And we have a lot of great antipasti too. We have a seasonal changing caponata with the burrata.
Caponata and burrata?
Yeah,
Just
together.
rhymes?
Just they belong together somehow with a little grilled bread, and then we have we're making arancini with a pistachio parsley pesto. Really good.
In fact, we're all going there now. Oh, wait, they're closed.
We have lots of cool stuff, and then the salads I think are fun and just
Okay, no,
clever.
I have to ask actually the burning question, really. This is the most important question of the night. You have kale salad, so what's the next kale? Think about this, right? Kale's the vegetable. What's the next kale?
I don't know. See, I like all these I love eggplants. One of my favorite
Is that gonna
things.
be the next kale?
It would be nice. It's not as pretty.
What do you guys
but
think? Think about this. Let me know what you think the next kale.
Eggplant and I love cauliflower.
Flower, that could be it.
Broccoli Romanesque. I love all that stuff. Probably, well, actually, we have a new Frito Mista that we just put on last night, too, with Kabocha Squash. I love Kabocha Squash.
That could do it.
And with Brussels sprouts and shaved Meyer lemons, and it's all dipped in buttermilk and then in a dredge and fried.
That sounds
That's so good.